You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
The Pet Doctor is sponsored by Ellie Mae Pet Supplements. Visit us at battle-cancer.com for more information on how Ellie Mae supplements can help your dog.
Is your pet stressed out? Does your pet need annual vaccines? Which pet is best for a child? Would you know if your dog was in pain? Pet Life Radio presents The Pet Doctor, where you'll learn everything about keeping your pet healthy and happy. From pet care, pet meds and grooming, to pet food, pet insurance, and dental care, this is the place to find out everything there is to know about pet wellness. Whether you have a dog, cat, reptile, or rabbit, you'll find answers for your pets straight from the vets, because it's your pet. Health matters. Please welcome your Pet Doctor host, veterinary media consultant and veterinarian, Dr. Bernadine Cruz.
I try not to laugh when a client tells me that they have a pet that's a very picky eater. They have a terrible time finding something it'll eat. They've tried every commercial food and now they're home cooking. Oh, what to do? And sitting in front of me is a pet suffering not from anorexia, but overnutrition. It's downright plump. Why don't these concerned pet owners see what's right there in front of them? How do these pets get this way? What can you do to ensure that your dog or cat isn't afflicted with this all too common form of malnutrition? Texas prides itself in all things big, but my guest, San Antonio veterinarian Dr. Michael Woolley, has a special interest in keeping pets slim and trim. We'll hear from Dr. Woolley right after this break.
Please have a seat in the waiting room. The doctor will be with you shortly, right after these messages.
Did you know cancer is the #1 cause of death in dogs? 1 out of every 3 dogs is affected by cancer at some point during his lifetime, and half of those dogs affected die. Shocking, isn't it? Symptoms of dog cancer are nonspecific and often lead to a late diagnosis of the disease. But before it reaches an advanced or incurable stage, cancer exhibits mild but recurring symptoms. If you think your dog is losing weight, has a loss of appetite, looking dull and listless, is non-social, or has any sores, swellings, bumps, or lumps, or abnormal growth anywhere, it's time to visit the vet to make sure everything's well. This message is brought to you by Ellie Mae Pet Supplements. Ellie Mae is an animal healthcare company that creates products which focus on improving the overall health and quality of life for your much-loved pet. Visit us at www.battle-cancer.com for more information on dog cancer and how Ellie Mae supplements can help your dog.
Buster, you're telling me my dog food products can't go on your shelves?
That's right. Didn't pass one of my Petco certified nutrition checklists. Sorry, Wayne.
Who made these checklists?
Geniuses. Very smart guys.
Well, it's good enough for most grocery stores.
Do you see cheese puffs on my shelves? Mayonnaise? Soda pop?
No.
That's because I ain't running no grocery store, Wayne. Your pets will get better nutrition, I guarantee it. Petco, where the healthy pets go.
Go to PetLifeRadio.com/Petco and get $6 off your order of $60 or more and up to 40% off hundreds of items at Petco. PetLifeRadio.com/Petco.
This year, Americans are expected to spend a jaw-dropping $36 billion on their pets. From lighted leashes to high-end spa products, the discriminating pet owner can find just about anything to pamper his or her pet. Hi, this is Michelle Fern. Join me every week for Best Bets for Pets, where we'll talk about the latest pet products and talk to the companies that make them. Best Bets for Pets, every week, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Welcome back to The Pet Doctor on Pet Life Radio with Dr. Bernadine Cruz. The doctor is in and we'll see you now.
So, Dr. Woolley, it's not true that everything's bigger in Texas?
Well, all the stuff that matters, yeah, that is bigger in Texas. And I'd say our pets, we're probably about like the rest of the nation.
And it really... Yeah, it's a spreading problem. Why do you think it is so widespread? California, Texas, Vermont, everywhere. People seem to have a problem with these overweight pets.
Yeah, you're right. One thing, the obesity problem in pets, especially in dogs, has pretty well paralleled that of human beings. And we're seeing, as time's gone by, we see more and more of it at a more rapid pace.
Yeah, you're right. I used to see that occasional chubby dog or cat. And probably when you and I were in school, we had a couple of classmates that were maybe a bit wide in the bum. But now children are really overweight and our pets are so overweight. Do you think that's some of the reason why owners can't see, don't realize that their pets are chubby?
Oh, you bet. It's such a parallel. We often, I think, pet owners often equate food with love. They equate a pet's appetite with health and with happiness. We want to see it. Same thing happens with people and their children. It happens in dogs and in cats as well.
I have to admit that my cats have me very well trained. You open up that can of food because they eat those little fancy cans of food, plus some dry. And if they don't immediately start chowing down, it's like, are you okay? Are you not feeling good? What's wrong? Here, let me open up another can of food for you. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Just leave it there and come back in a while. And lo and behold, these little stinkers are eating food.
You're exactly right. I mean, I see that same thing go on even after we have identified, that a patient of mine has a real weight problem. And we start working with that weight problem. And one of the things that I often use with them is a thing called dilotipide or Slentrol, and that actually works on the satiety center of the brain slowly and makes them feel satisfied. And so these pets don't want to eat as much, and the stuff works great. The biggest challenge that I have is at keeping the client giving this thing to their pet, because they often say, "Oh, he's not himself." He just, if they stop it, and I ask them, "Why did you stop?" "Oh, he just wasn't himself on that." And when we break it down, what they mean is he's not there at the table when I eat. He's not there when I go into the pantry.
He's lethargic.
So, yeah,
he's just laying there. Yeah.
That's right. He's just laying there. Well, yeah, like normal dogs do.
And I would definitely like to touch more on the medication called Slentrol, the commercial name for it. But before we get into that, how do you let a person know that their pet is truly overweight? How much overweight is just a little pudgy, and then there's the obesity? How do you let them know? How can they realize? Because sometimes these pets, you can't pick them up. If you have a little one, you can say, okay, get on the scale and see how much they're weighing and keep track of weight loss, etc. But what do you do when you have the Great Dane? How do you let them know this pet's overweight?
Yeah, well, that is a real problem in Great Danes, because people, generally a person that has a Great Dane likes the idea they've got the big dog. I'm the guy with the big dog. And often, everybody's heard of this Great Dane that weighed 180, 200 pounds. And so to get them there, a lot of these guys get overweight, and then when they bring these guys in, really we have to talk not about the patient being overweight, but about them being at an unhealthy weight. I think that's a big factor, and it truly is. It's an unhealthy weight. So many things that are associated with that. So we just start talking about it. At home, a person can feel the ribs. You should be able to feel the ribs very easily. You shouldn't be able to see them, but immediately feel them when you touch over the chest.
So that's called the body condition scoring. Can you go into that a little bit?
That's correct. Yeah, there's two ways that veterinarians typically go through this body condition scoring, and I think the same sort of thing is done in human body condition scoring. There is a 1 to 5 scale where right at the center of that, the 3, is where you're saying, now that's ideal, that's your right weight. And then there's another one that is it's just a 1 to 7 scale, a little bit finer tuned, and right in the very middle of that at 4 is what we want to see. I'm sorry, I think it's a 1 to 9 scale. I don't use it. I use the 1 to 5. I'm got a simpler mind.
I like the 1 to 9. It just gives me a little bit more running room. But Dr. Woolley, I definitely agree with what you're saying with the Great Danes, because so many times people will bring in a Chihuahua or German Shepherd, whatever breed, and they say, well, this dog is only weighing 10 pounds or 100 pounds, whatever it is, but its parents, they were X pounds over, so they think that it needs to be as big as their parents. How do you address it? Because sometimes this is genetics.
Yeah, you're right. Well, yeah, genetics has a little something to do with it. I would agree. There are some breeds that we see that are more likely to be obese. Labs, Cairn Terriers, Scotties, Cocker Spaniels, Cavalier King Charles. They're all breeds that are very often overweight.
Besides genetics, you mentioning these breeds, what are some of the other common reasons why dogs start packing on the pounds?
The number one thing, I think, is just overfeeding. People just overfeed. The bottom line is more energy is taken in than is expended.
And by energy, you mean food.
That's exactly, yes, thank you. That's exactly it. We are putting more energy into them in the form of food, and they're not expending it. And, of course, as they start getting heavier, they're not about to expend it. And then they just, one of the problems with fat is that fat's very glandular, and it actually releases factors that make this overweight pet hungrier. They simply are hungrier than a normal weight pet. And so, there you go. People are responding. Food equals love.
I know you're talking about, these overweight pets really aren't the same as their slimmer counterparts. When I was in veterinary school, and it wasn't that long ago, they told us that the fat inside the abdominal cavity, the white fat, really was just a store of energy. And there's some people and some pets that have way too many stores and kind of push things around. But I know right now in the United States, two of the biggest areas of medicine that are being investigated is cancer and obesity. So the fat, you were saying, produces a lot of chemicals. And I know many are considered pro-inflammatory. What effects do these inflammatory enzymes have on the body?
For one thing, they increase your chances of cancer. Another thing that they do is the fat cell actually releases other factors that simply make you hungrier. They also decrease the way your body uses its insulin. They also decrease the way that your body releases insulin. That's probably the biggies.
I know you've probably also seen some of these dogs that are just having some real hard time breathing, for instance, too. You get those little bulldogs or you get the Chihuahua that's way overweight. And these poor sweethearts, as you were saying before, they get chubby and they don't want to exercise. Sometimes it's because they almost can't exercise. They can't catch their breath.
Yeah, you're right. And you kind of hit on something there when you said bulldogs. And we see in some breeds like bulldogs and pugs and Boston Terriers, these are these kind of little fire plug little dogs. And people look at them and they think they ought to have this stocky appearance. And people tend to be very forgiving of the fact that they're not breathing very well. They just sort of accept, oh, well, that's because you're a bulldog. That's what we see in these guys. And so people often don't want their bulldog to appear slim. They want them to look stocky. They equate that with size and strength.
It is hard because we've gotten so used to seeing chubby people and chubby dogs. I'll have clients, I'm sure you've had it too, Dr. Woolley, where they come in and you say, all right, this Yorkie is 3 pounds overweight. And they go, 3 pounds, big deal. I go to the dog park and I see dogs, Yorkies, that are lots bigger than my dog, so my dog can't be fat. How do you counteract that type of a statement?
Well, for one thing, I tell people that it's really a matter of body percentage. If they're 20% over ideal weight, well, if you've got a Labrador that should be, if he's a very large framed Labrador, 100 pounds might be his ideal body weight. For him to be 20% overweight, he'd be 120 pounds. But for a dog that should be 10 pounds, if he's 12 pounds, that's 20% overweight. And I don't really discuss so much the actual weight or, the look of them because, I don't want to pick on them. I'm not, as far as the cosmetics go, I think they're kind of cute when they're a bit pudgy. They're beautiful that way. However, we want to talk about whether this is an unhealthy problem or not. And the truth is, it's unhealthy, and it's unhealthy regardless what breed you are, what age you are. It's unhealthy.
And that is one of the hardest things, trying to have people realize that this overweight, overnutrition really has a lot of comorbidities. Lots of other health problems come along with it. So you mentioned the breathing problem. What are some of the other health risks that you see with these overweight pets?
Osteoarthritis is huge. We see just bone and joint problems as they get a little bit older, and sometimes they can be fairly young. Some of the breeds that we see that may be overweight are dogs that are, again, like bulldogs, pugs, Bostons. They all have kind of a straighter tarsal joint. They stand up straighter in the back leg, kind of a post-legged sort of a thing, which is an unhealthy structure in the first place. And then when you add this extra weight onto it, these particular breeds have a much bigger problem with that. I see respiratory disease in those same breeds, plus I see just in respiratory disease, tracheal collapse, that sort of thing in any small breed overweight dog. Urinary tract disease is increased in both dogs and cats. Pancreatitis. We see if we have a dog that is, let's say, Schnauzers, one of the most common dogs to have pancreatitis, they get overweight. That greatly increases their chances that they're going to get pancreatitis. If they have pancreatitis, chronic low-grade pancreatitis eventually can cause them to get diabetes mellitus. It just goes on and on. Cancer, these patients are a bigger anesthetic risk. The list goes on and on.
And one of the things that I see all too common with these pudgy kids, especially the small pudgy ones, like a little Dachshund or the Shih Tzus, are going to be disc disease, so having back problems, and also blowing out their knees. I call it football injuries when a football player many times will get tackled, especially on AstroTurf, and their bodies go one way and their feet stay in another and they tear those ligaments. That can be horrible. The one thing I'd love you to touch on is how it affects lifespan. People oftentimes don't realize, oh yeah, maybe it's having a hard time walking around. But how does obesity, Dr. Woolley, affect their lifespan?
It greatly decreases it. And, and that's pretty well backed up by research. Purina did a big, long study. In fact, it was probably one of the most in-depth nutritional studies ever done, and it was recently completed. They took large groups of dogs, I think they were Labradors, and they fed one half of these dogs puppy food when they're a puppy, and then adult food when they're adult, and then senior food when they're a senior. They fed both groups the exact same foods. Group A, they fed however much those dogs decided to eat. On whatever they ate, that weight was measured, and 70% of that was fed to Group B. And, there was a lot of findings that came out of this study, but two things that really stuck out in my mind were that these dogs averaged about the Group B, the ones that were fed 30% less calories throughout their lifetime. And that's throughout their lifetime, not just eventually, but throughout their lifetime. These dogs ended up living about 2 years longer, and they also developed their arthritis more than 2 years later. So it made a huge impact on these dogs, and that same thing's happened in our homes.
So it really is important when these puppies, and if you're getting a dog as a puppy, it's older, you don't have any control over it. But I think from that study, it definitely showed that when you had that puppy, it was so important to start that lean weight at the time they were young,
early.
Because once those fat cells are made, they're permanent. You can lose weight. That fat cell is still there just waiting for some more yummies.
Yeah, that is huge. That fat cell can shrink. When we diet our pets, that fat cell is shrinking, but it's never going away. So it still maintains its glandular components. Another thing that they found in studies is that, and because you were mentioning about dealing with this while our pets are young, so important, because that whole thing about cancer, the increased risk of cancer, is something that they actually get in that first year of getting overweight. When they're overweight, when they're very young, that equates to cancer later on in life. And even reducing that pet's weight later on in life doesn't reduce their chances of cancer because that ship has sailed.
Even though it's that cute, pudgy puppy, and I agree with you, those little round babies are so cute.
They're cute as especially if they're dachshunds.
And cute is one thing, yeah, but long-term health, that's what's so important for us as pet owners. We're their caregivers. And sure, they love the yummy stuff, but we need to step in there. You were talking about feeding at life stage, the puppies having the puppy food. That's one thing that's so hard sometimes. You get the puppy, you get it neutered, and at that point, I'm telling clients, okay, even though it may still technically be a puppy, now it's time to feed an adult food. We need to watch the metabolism because I just neutered it. The metabolism is going to drop. Dr. Woolley, address metabolism, please, with neutering and also reading that pet food label. That is confusing.
Their metabolism drops, and it's something like 25 to 30% once they are spayed. And that, I tell my clients, that is not a bad thing. We're talking about saving maybe 30% on your food bill over this patient's life.
That's a good way to think of it.
It really is. It's really a cool thing. Now you just simply feed them less.
How do I read the label? The label says I have a 50-pound Labrador, and I'm supposed to feed it 4 cups of food. And if I feed it that 4 cups of food, it's now turning into the 80-pound Labrador.
That is so true. And, I don't know exactly how that all happened, but I would suspect, that the food industry, the dog food or pet food industry overall is extremely competitive, and there's lots of money to be made. And obviously, the more you sell, the more money you make. But the other thing is when they are showing, any company that is making a particular food can show in their nutritional studies that their food is just simply, it's better. Look at this. You see a bar graph of here's this food versus, food X versus food Y. If those two foods were equal in nutritional value, but brand X said feed 2 cups to this 30-pound dog, and brand B said feed 3 cups to this 30-pound dog, then brand B can show that we are 50% higher in our nutritional value. Doesn't that look great? Sell more food. So, it's one of those things that's free to these dog food companies to do that, and I don't think anybody wants to blink on this one. I think they've overdone it.
Well, you're probably correct. I know that thankfully they're trying to change some of the rules and regulations to have the number of calories per cup on a bag of pet food. So we'll be able to determine exactly how many calories does your pet with its activity level and its stage of life truly need. So if we've raised your appetite a little bit right now, stay tuned during this break. Go grab a carrot. Don't grab that cookie. And we'll be right back.
Please have a seat in the waiting room. The doctor will be with you shortly, right after these messages.
Every pet is unique. Maybe they're gray in the muzzle, yet young at heart. Maybe they're growing out of the puppy stage and into their paws and ears. Or maybe they're just trying to maintain a more girlish figure. At PetSmart, we have the right food for your pet at a great value for you. PetSmart. Be better together.
Go to PetLifeRadio.com/PetSmart and save up to 30% on toys, collars, leashes, PetSmart gift cards, treats, and more. Go to PetLifeRadio.com/PetSmart today.
Dyson.
The new Dyson Animal Vacs are powerful bagless upright vacuums for homes with pets. Air muscle and radio root cyclone technology generates the strongest suction power to powerfully remove dust, dirt, and pet hair from the home or car. To order your Dyson Animal Vac, go to PetLifeRadio.com/Dyson. PetLifeRadio.com/Dyson to order your Dyson Animal Vac today.
Dyson. Music to your ears.
The Pet Doctor is sponsored by Ellie Mae Pet Supplements. Ellie Mae is an animal healthcare company that creates products which focus on improving the overall health and quality of life for your much-loved pet. Visit us at www.battle-cancer.com for more information on dog cancer and how Ellie Mae supplements can help your dog.
Hi everybody, I'm Megan Blake here with my sidekick, Super Smiley, the giant mutt and spokes dog for throwaways. You're listening to Pet Life Radio, and I'd like to tell you about our brand new show, A Super Smiley Adventure. Our show explores adventures with animals. They can be traveling, out in the world trips, or inner journeys where our animals lead us to inspiration and self-discovery, or just plain fun adventures. Join us here on Pet Life Radio on A Super Smiley Adventure. Good boy.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com. Welcome back to the Pet Doctor on Pet Life Radio with Dr. Bernadine Cruz. The doctor is in, and we'll see you now.
Dr. Woolley, you've given us some great information on why our pets can get overweight and the problems associated with it. Okay, so I have a pet, and giving food, yes, very much, is giving love. What are some healthy treats that you can give a pet? And starting this weight loss program, let's start with treats and feeding. How many times a day, what kind of treats can I safely give? Is there a best food? One more question for you.
First of all, I would say that if a pet is overweight, I think you need to change your habits. They generally became overweight because you were feeding more food, because you were giving more calories than they should. And I really feel like, personally, I feel like it's time to stop all the snacks, stop all the bad habits. You've got to adopt just a new management protocol. You no longer feed your pet when you sit there or hand them something every time you sit down or every time you're preparing food.
But that means you don't love the pet anymore because you're not giving that treat. You're very mean, Dr. Woolley.
Well, again, I keep getting back to this unhealthy thing. It's about that weight is unhealthy.
But if I have to give something, it's just in my DNA. If I don't give something to my pet, what do I give? What can I give
there you go.
That's not going to pack on the pounds? Because I know a milk bone, an extra large milk bone, is 225 calories.
Yeah, chances are if it tastes good, it's full of fat. Or if it tastes good, at least it's full of calories, whether it is fat or carbohydrate or whatever. Green beans is something that you can feed that is pretty low in calories, and most dogs want them. And they're nice because they're just sort of a little snack size. But people have to even look at that as, okay, I hand you this green bean. I give you one green bean or two green beans. But we don't sit there and now we load you up with that as well. I'm always telling my clients, our dogs really don't look at the size of the meal. They don't really quantitate. If you look at some of the best trained dogs in the world are the ones that are the most responsive, the ones that are in dog shows. Whatever that trainer is handing them is microscopic. What they're holding in their hand that they quickly flip to that dog is really tiny, and that dog cannot wait for the next one.
It's more the thought that counts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we need to, instead of always giving our pets treats, I know some people just have to do it, so there's the kind of thing that you can give them something really extremely tiny. Instead of doing that, spend more time with them. Sit with them, hold them, take them
brush them.
Brush them. Yeah, and really enjoy your pet.
I think that's important. You're saying about exercising with them, taking them for a walk, because you were saying earlier, that energy in the calories is exceeding the calories out. So I know if I try to watch my weight and I'm just sitting on my bum working on my computer and I get on the scale going, wow, I've really cut back all week, and the scale goes, no, you haven't. The weight is the same. It is so frustrating. But if I get myself on the Stairmaster and start working out, it's like, woohoo, the calories are going down. What kind of exercises can you do with these chubby pets? They can hardly make it out to the front door.
And truly, it is not a whole lot of exercise that you can do with them. It needs to be really low-stress exercise, just a nice walk. Just a quiet walk around the block will increase a pet's metabolism. And then it's so important that you don't really turn right around and say, gee, we went for that walk. Here's a treat. You went for a walk. The walk was your treat.
Oh, so I shouldn't get the frozen yogurt after I go for my bout of exercise. Yeah. I see
That's
now.
Right.
Okay.
We don't head straight to get a donut.
Yeah. Okay, Speaking of donuts, yo-yos, that's kind of a snack that's out there. You were talking about kind of yo-yo dieting, where all of a sudden that chubby pet loses some weight, has the fat cells, and they really are hungry when they're chubby. How do you turn off that hunger? You had mentioned Erlodipide, the Slentrol medication. How does that help these dogs?
The Slentrol is a thing that is given to the pet just once a day directly in the mouth. It is just a liquid. It is pretty much tasteless, and it's given to them once a day. Doesn't matter when you do it during the day. I always tell my clients, just put it in your dog's food. I mean, literally put the package of the Slentrol in the dog's food. Don't squirt it on their food, squirt it in their mouth. But if you put it in the food, you won't forget to feed your pet. This way you always end up giving it. The Slentrol targets a thing called PYY. It's actually, we have a satiety center in the brain, and we don't get full as we eat food because our stomach gets distended. We get full because as PYY slowly goes up to the brain, it finally loads in just enough to the satiety center that it finally hits critical mass and you suddenly say, man, I'm full. And that's how we sometimes get overfull if we eat too much. Well,
that's why Mom said, eat slowly, right?
That's right, eat slowly. So when we use the Slentrol on the patient, that increases how fast this PYY gets up to the satiety center of the brain. And bottom line is the pet actually feels full sooner and they feel full longer. And they just simply are satisfied. It's not really necessarily a feeling of fullness, but a feeling of satisfaction.
So many people listening to this may have said, okay, I know right now there's an over-the-counter medication for people called Woolley that is a fat blocker. Is this working the same way?
No, not really, because it works in a little bit, yes, but mostly the greatest benefit is this thing that it targets this PYY. And so it basically targets the satiety center, and you feel satisfied early and you feel satisfied long. That's how it really works. With that product, there really is just a small amount of decreased fat usage as well. It does actually block some of the fat usage. We're really not targeting fat so much. In fact, when people put their pets on that particular product, the Slentrol, I tell them don't change their food. Do not put them on a low-fat food because it actually doesn't work as well. It will still work. You'll just end up having to use more of it.
I've used this quite a bit myself for my own clients, and I've had just some really great results. Clients really seem to be very happy with it. It's the rare dog that has any issues, and sometimes that's just a matter of maybe vomiting once as we're changing medication doses. I love this because people are coming in. I get to see them on a monthly basis for a weigh-in and see how they're doing, adjust the dose of the medication. It's really pretty cost-effective. And when I tell them how much money they're saving on all these other medical issues and pet food, they tend to jump on this thing. How about using it in people or cats? Can you use Slentrol for people?
No. Turns out, and boy, is that, I'm asked that all the time. Are they making this for people? Are they making this for people? And I say, probably Pfizer's working on that one. That had worked out real well for them if they could. But no, it is not made for people. It's not approved in people. It's not approved in cats. And, both cats and people could sure use something like that. But this thing is not approved for us. And not only that, but I understand it doesn't work out so well for us to do it. So, no, it's not something that should be ever taken by people.
Dr. Woolley, I understand you're also part of a group called Veterinarians Against Canine Obesity. Who is this group of people and what are they doing?
It's a group. We have a secret handshake and we meet in a hollow tree.
And you eat cookies in that tree, yes.
Yeah, and eat cookies, yes. That's right. We load on cookies. No, really, it's a group of veterinarians that is focused on educating and motivating pet owners on ways to combat and to prevent obesity. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Where can people learn more about obesity and Veterinarians Against Canine Obesity?
Pfizer has a veterinary medical information and product support number that you can call at 800-366-5288. And then it's a matter of calling your veterinarian, and especially if you veterinarians that are in this group, Veterinarians Against Canine Obesity here in San Antonio. There's several of us that are in this group. So, we can be called. Myself, Dr. Stewart, Dr. Sarah Miller here at our hospital. I know there's Dr. Mossberg, Dr. Rodriguez here in town.
So no matter if they live in Connecticut or Washington State, I'm sure there's veterinarians there. Going to this website sounds like an awesome idea. Call your veterinarian is the most important thing. And too often clients will say, especially if it's a new client, they'll say, well, my other veterinarian never said anything about my pet being overweight or may have said it was a little bit chubby, but wow, Dr. Cruz, you're just always, bugging us about the pet's overweight and the pet's chubby. I think more and more veterinarians are now becoming aware that obesity is truly a medical issue. It's not just a cosmetic issue. And all the long-term effects that it can have on our pets, it's really decreasing their quality of life. Right now, there's about 41.2 million dogs in the U.S., and they figure that at least 40% of these pets are obese. That's about 17 million dogs. So you may want to finish listening to this podcast, pick up your dog, take a look at it, get it to stand up, look down, see if you see a waistline, put your hands on the side of its rib cage, see if you can feel those little ribs. And if they can't, Dr. Woolley, what should they do?
Well, first of all, I would say you're right. A pet being overweight, it's the elephant in the room. It really is. And obesity is a disease. We need to treat it as a disease. That's what I tell my clients. It is unhealthy to be overweight. It is unhealthy to be obese. It is a disease. It is no different to me than if a dog came in and they had, I mean, you name it. They had a fracture. They had cancer. They had a respiratory disease. Anything, all of these things they're going to limit life. And so does obesity. So I don't think we can ignore obesity.
Well, Dr. Woolley, thank you very much for being with us today. I think you've really opened a lot of people's eyes. Hopefully they'll take a closer look at their cats, their dogs, determine whether or not they're overweight, because obesity, you're right, is a disease. And the diseases that it impacts really denies our pets both the length and quality of life we want for them. So thank you very much for being with us today.
I've enjoyed the time visiting with you.
Great. And thank you very much, listeners, for listening to us. Please tune in again next week when we'll have more information on how to make you the best pet owner that you can possibly be. Take care.
Pets can be a wonderful addition to your life. Keeping them healthy and happy is important. Pet Life Radio presents The Pet Doctor with veterinary media consultant and veterinarian Dr. Bernadine Cruz. Whether you have a dog, cat, reptile, or rabbit, you'll find answers for your pets straight from the vets. The Pet Doctor, on demand every week, only on PetLifeRadio.com.
The Pet Doctor is sponsored by Ellie Mae Pet Supplements. Ellie Mae is an animal healthcare company that creates products which focus on improving the overall health and quality of life for your much-loved pet. Visit us at www.battle-cancer.com for more information on dog cancer and how Ellie Mae supplements can help your dog.